Hey everyone, Carl back with Littleroot Lessons, bringing you a deep dive featuring Tyranitar. Tyranitar has kind of started to see more popularity as Series 9 has started to develop. Urshifu being very popular though, kind of has me worried about Tyranitar's future. But before we get into all that, make sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications for when new videos go live. Comment down below who you want to see me cover next week. I have almost nothing lined up at the moment. I usually have a bunch of these planned ahead of time, but I'm running low, so I would like to hear ideas from you all. So Tyranitar. Tyranitar is known as the Sand Setter, as like the primary Sand Setter in the format, thanks to its ability Sandstream, and a lot of teams are usually built around it to abuse this fact. In the Dynamax format, however, Tyranitar can kind of stand on its own, even without Sandstream as its active ability. Especially with things like Weakness Policy and Assault Vest being in the format, and just making these Dynamax Pokemon even more powerful than they already would be. Outside of that, there's even Choice Scarf sets that look for fast flinches or Weakness Policy triggers or things like that, and kind of just like to abuse Tyranitar's really deep move pool, thanks to its like pseudo legendary status. So the history of Tyranitar goes very, very deep. Originally coming out in the very first format of Sword and Shield's debut series, Dynamax has been a real powerful tool for Tyranitar, and a lot of the times in early series you would see Tyranitar Excadrill, and 9 times out of 10 they'd Dynamax that Tyranitar in front of you and proc a policy. It's been the premier Sand Setter for a very long time as well, so it's done a lot to push the Sand archetype forward, even throughout Sword and Shield's life. I remember in early series, weather wasn't as good as it is now comparative to sand. Rain didn't have Kingdra or Politoed. You had Pelipper and like Ludicolo. Sun only had Torkoal. You didn't have Venusaur yet. So it's just kind of like, what's your Sun abuser going to be? Oh, you have Charizard, but HA Charizard wasn't allowed yet. So it's kind of just like, well, I'm just going to play Sand then because that's what I have. Nowadays, though, Tyranitar has kind of fallen off ever since Series 6 saw it banned. So it's kind of just been sidelined as other Pokemon and teams kind of entered the format, and Urshifu was a big hindrance on that as well, which we'll get to the Urshifu versus Tyranitar talk a little bit later. So, common partners for Tyranitar. Tyranitar, being Sandstream, Sand Setter, it likes the Sand Rush Pokemon. Things like Excadrill, Dracovish, Dracozolt, now that we have their hidden abilities, Lycanroc, introduced in IOAs, another good Sand Rush target. These are super common pairings with it. One of the downsides of T-Tar Excadrill is it's got a lot of shared weaknesses. So when we got access to Dracovish and Dracozolt, that's kind of was just like, oh, these are Sand Rush users that aren't weak to ground, fighting, and steel. So it's just kind of nice to have these other typings to look at. Tyranitar also has a real big weakness to Urshifu. Fighting in general is the big scary thing, but Urshifu Dark and Urshifu Rapid Strike are very scary. They're kind of what pushed T-Tar out of the meta to begin with, and I'm surprised that T-Tar is starting to see more of a resurgence now, with Urshifu being one of the top Pokemon in the format. But pairing it with things like Landorus, Togekiss, and Tapu Fini are usually pretty good fixes for Tyranitar's issues. Togekiss and Tapu Fini being the real good pairings. Landorus is kind of just like a pseudo fix. It's not a very good one because you can always still get crit and things like that. So looking at the metagame breakdown for T-Tar, I'm going to start with the items because there's not a million of them like there are moves. Weakness Policy is the most common item on Tyranitar, to no one's surprise, 64%. Focus Sash is a little bit of a surprise. I would expect Assault Vest or Choice Scarf to maybe even be a little bit better, but it makes sense in an Urshifu format where you can't protect against it. Being able to live a hit no matter what is always just a good thing, so Focus Sash being at 12% here is kind of makes sense. Chople Berry at 9, that is the Fighting Weakness Berry. Kind of does the same thing as a Focus Sash, but maybe lets you live at a little bit more HP. Choice Scarf, Choice Band here. Choice Scarf is something we're going to talk about when we get to our movesets, because there is a fast T-Tar set that's kind of cool. And then Assault Vest here, wrapping up the end, is kind of just whatever. It was okay in earlier series, and it's not as great now because there's a lot of fighting Pokemon that can like just beat you up. Over to the moves now. It's hard to explain a lot of this because a lot of them do the same thing. Like Crunch, Lash Out, Assurance, I could lump them all together and just say Dark type Stab. It's pretty self-explanatory. High Horsepower, Stomping Tantrum, Earthquake, Ground Move. Like Rock Slide, Rock Coverage. Superpower, Brick Break, Low Kick, Fighting Coverage. There's Ice Punch on here to beat up opposing Rillaboons. Outside of that, there's a little bit more of the support style or the faster style coming out. There's Taunt at 4% here. There's Dragon Dance at 3%. Dragon Dance T-Tor was something that was really cool in like Series 5 where you could do Follow Me Dragon Dance a lot of the times and not be super punished for it. So that was something that was really cool. And then a lot of the other times, something that was a little popular in Series 8 was like Special T-Tar. You could like pair Ice Beam, Dark Pulse, things like that alongside it because Tyranitar actually still has a very high special attack stat for being a Tyranitar. So just things to think about when you're building a Tyranitar. Its move pool is so vast and diverse that you can probably never build the same T-Tar twice unless you actually thought about it and tried to do that. But yeah. So building with Tyranitar. Tyranitar is really flexible when it comes to terms of its move pool and what it can do with items. So you can easily catch your opponent off guard with, say, a special T-Tar set that's Scarfed, or a bulky weakness policy set that doesn't do a lot of damage but takes a lot of hits. And you kind of want to plan what you're going to do with your Tyranitar before you build the rest of your team usually. If you wanted to build a team that abuses sand but doesn't use Sand Rush, you're going to want to Dynamax your Tyranitar most of the time. But if you build Tyranitar that doesn't Dynamax very well, you kind of run into a problem. So Tyranitar can fulfill a bunch of different roles on the team, and trying to build around Tyranitar as you do so is going to help you more than hurt you. So, movesets for Tyranitar. This is where it's going to get a little bit more intricate. We're just touch and go here on a lot of these sets because there's so many things you could do. The first two EVs are super standard. Like, these are max HP, max attack, 4 to defense, that makes sense, things like that. The first set's the standard, no speed investment, weakness policy, Dynamax Tyranitar. Rock Slide, Lash Out, Ice Punch, Protect. This is super standard, you see this all the time. The second set is an Assault Vest set from way back in the day. This is Rock Slide, Lash Out, Iron Head, and Brick Break to destroy screens. You can Dynamax this target, especially in Trick Room. Because we are Brave Nature and 0 speed IVs, you can always just Trick Room and just take over a game that way. But a lot of the times you'd rather just Iron Head for flinches, Rock Slide for flinches, Brick Break to break screens, things like that. This last set here is kind of cute. So Choice Scarf Tyranitar is something that's not too terribly popular, but being max speed Jolly gets you, I believe it's to 186, if I remember that correctly, with Scarf. So you're faster than all the base 100s and a lot of the other Pokemon too. So you can always get off things like a Breaking Swipe or a Rock Slide to kind of just be that annoying interrupting Pokemon. This one also carries Surf. So Surf is something that Tyranitar, it's weird that you see on Tyranitar, but it can proc a policy for a fire type or an opposing ground type. If you wanted to run weakness policy Excadrill, you could probably get away with it doing this, but I wouldn't recommend that. A lot of the more common ones are things like Colossal, other fire types. I'm thinking like Rotom Heat weakness policy was a popular thing for a while, so this would be kind of cool to do with that. Just little things like that can just catch people off guard and they aren't expecting it. So, beating Tyranitar, like we mentioned, 4 times weak to fighting, but it also has a million other weaknesses to go with it. That's one of the downsides of being rock and dark. So the odds are that you always will have a Pokemon that can hit Tyranitar super effectively. On the backside of that, beware the weakness policy. A Tyranitar can just Dynamax and take a hit a lot of the times, and if it has a weakness policy and you attacked super effectively into it, you just activated the policy and the Tyranitar is going to sweep through the game. Simple as that. Make sure to have weather control of some sort if you can. Sand boosts Tyranitar's special defense, so if you can remove that sand, it's going to lose some of its extra bulk that it would normally not have. And Intimidate cycling is really good against an opposing Tyranitar. It was something that they did in Series 5 a lot, with just cycling Incineroar in and out a lot. And now that we have Landorus in Series 9, you can easily just swap Incineroar, Landorus, Incineroar, Landorus, sit there and just cycle in front of this T-Tar over and over and over, and force that Tyranitar to switch out if it needs to. So, wrapping up with Tyranitar. Tyranitar, being a pillar of the format, up until about Series 5 and 6, it fell off really hard after that. So it's nice to kind of see it come back, but I'm not holding my breath saying it's going to be an amazing Pokemon. Urshifu is still a dominant force, Intimidate is still really powerful, but it's nice seeing T-Tar kind of try to break into the top 30 usage stats here. Weakness Policy may be the most common item, but Tyranitar can carry a plethora of items, and even ones we didn't even list today. So try to figure out what it's carrying if you're playing against it, or try to come up with your own unique sets when you're playing with it. And Dynamax Tyranitar is just going to be the best wall you could ever be. I think it can still take a close combat from non-banded Urshifu. So even Dynamax is just nothing but a boon for Tyranitar. So sometimes it's best to just ignore Tyranitar, intimidate it, and hope that you don't get swept by it. Because if you proc that policy, it's going to take over the game. And with that being said, I want to thank everyone for hanging out and listening to me ramble about Tyranitar today. Make sure to check us out on Twitter. All of our handles are there on screen. Check the Discord link out in the comments down below. And remember to hit the subscribe button. It's free. Helps us get to our 500 subscriber goal by the end of the year. And I'd like to hit that. It's a little high in my opinion, but it's what everyone suggested, so that's what we're going to go with. And make sure to have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening around the world, and we will see you all on Friday with Registeel. Bye, guys.